Hello and welcome. How you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And today we're going to have a look at a couple of buildings in Leuven in Belgium. A couple of very Tartarian buildings built in the 1400s, they say. And you know the story with wheelbarrows, horse and cart, copper chisels, all this silly stuff. And they've got some pretty interesting features as well. So let's jump in and check out some Tartarian architecture. Okay, so we're looking at Leuven, which is a town in Belgium, and we're going to have a look at the town hall, which is a very Tartarian-esque, very antiquitech looking building. They're telling us it's built between 1439 and 1469, so 30 years to build this. And as you can see, looking much more like a cathedral or some kind of tech, right? Antiquitech than a town hall. And like again, I said this was built in 1439, and the population of this town in 1439 was very small. So just check this out. We've got, look at these Antiquitech towers here. Okay, they also have these little verandas, so were they something to do with airships? What were these verandas for? Got them on the back as well. But this whole building is covered, like just covered in this amazing facading, like, and there are statues all over it. And like it just literally looks like a machine, right? And we're told this was built with no power tools, right? No steam engines, nothing like that. And you can see this is a large building as well. So let's have a look. Here's an older picture. So a bit of the history about this is it says that construction started in 1439 at the site of an existing town hall. The first architect, Sulpicius van Voorst, died soon after the rear wings of the complex got started and was succeeded briefly by Jan Keldermans II, who was apparently a part of some big architectural family. The project resumed in 1448 under the direction of Matthias de Leyens. So we've got a couple of names here and some dates. And the thing about this building is it stands next to another very interesting building, and that is St. Peter's Church in Leuven. And as you can see here, these buildings are right next to each other, which piqued my interest. So I thought, when was this church built? The first church on the site, made of wood, presumably founded 986. Of course, it burned down, was replaced by a Romanesque church made of stone. And it doesn't say what happened to this church, but it just says of the Romanesque building, only part of the crypt remains underneath the chancel of the actual church. So this has a crypt underneath it. And if we come back to here, the Leuven Town Hall, we will find that it says the cellars of some demolished houses were incorporated into the new construction and can be accessed today through a small door at the left side of the town hall. So this has lower stories, basically, right? They're calling this one cellars of old houses, and in the cathedral, they're calling it a crypt that remains from this Romanesque church, which just disappeared. They don't tell us what happened to it. So that's interesting. Now, who do you think built, or at least were the architects of this cathedral? It says its construction period overlapped with that of the town hall across the market, and in earlier decades of the construction shared the same succession of architects as its civic neighbour. So we've got Sulpicius van Voorst, followed by Jan Keldermans II and Matthias de Leyens. The exact same three architects that were given for this town hall. So this was built, the town hall, they say, completed 1469, so 1439 to 1469. And St. Peter's Church, the cathedral, was built begun approximately 1425, finished in 1497. So basically being built at the same time. Why would they do this? Why would they build these massive, oversized chapels and town halls? Well, it's because in the year 1400, this is city facts for Leuven population, Leuven, Belgium. In the year 1400, they had 2,328 people as their population. So they decided to build these two massively oversized buildings that are clearly built for a population bigger than 2,328, and they built them concurrently at the same time. And these were 30 to 50-year projects. So we're talking generations of these townsfolk building these buildings, and of course they're building them with horse and cart and no machinery. So that makes no sense at all. At all. It's just a silly story. This is not what happened. These buildings were found, okay? And all this story, all this his story is the parasites trying to explain how they got control of these buildings. That's it, right? They put it all into their bloodlines. And of course, these buildings were built in the 1400s, as we've discussed, which was the medieval times, basically. So, what tools did they have? This is old stoneworks, history of masonry. We get down to castles. In Europe, stonemasons busily built castles for hundreds of years. The first great European cathedrals were erected during the Norman period, circa 1000 AD. Gothic chic developed during the 12th and 13th centuries. At times, timber-based construction was in vogue, but which buildings endure? Stone, of course. And down here, the tools. For many centuries, stonemasonry tools remained relatively unchanged. Masons used various sizes and shapes of chisels, mallets, hammers, and trowels. Archaeologists have found chisels at the Egyptian pyramids, similar in size and shape to those manufactured today. Of course, that is 100% proof that they used chisels to build the pyramids. And then, of course, during the 20th century, internal combustion engine changed the tools. We have electricity, blah, 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 cranes, trucks, forklifts. So these buildings we're looking at, guys, in the narrative, in his story, being built in the 1400s, they were built with various size and shapes of chisels, mallets, hammers, and trowels. That's how they built them. It's the same story all the time, right? These architects whose names come up over and over again. Clearly, obviously, no construction photos. We're talking the 1400s, but no explanation of who actually built this, how they built it, where the materials came from, what the tools used were. Like none of it. And we're building these massive buildings. There's no explanation as to why. Why did they need them so big when the town's population was just 2,300? Does not make any sense at all. Okay, these are remnants of the Tartarian people, or what we call Tartaria, the previous advanced civilization that we see the remnants of all across the world. And another very interesting part of this church, St. Peter's, is this. It's called a jacamart. What exactly is a jacamart? Well, it also means bell striker or jackmart. A jackamart is also called a quarterjack. It is an automaton, okay, an animated mechanized figure of a person, usually made from wood or metal. They strike the bells on the hour. Jackamarts are usually part of clocks or clock towers and are often near at the top of the construction. The figurine is also known as the Jack of the Clock or Jack O'Clock. Interesting. Jack and Jill went up the hill. One of the oldest and best known jacquemarts is found in the South Tower of the Cathedral in the Church of Notre Dame in Dijon. So here's one. It was installed by Philip II of Burgundy in 1383. Okay, so this is the jacquemart at St. Pierre in Leuven, and you can see bronzed gold figure that strikes the bell on the hour. So this is an automaton, okay? An automaton, which is a relatively self-operating machine or control mechanism designed to automatically follow a sequence of operations or respond to predetermined instructions. So this is an early, robot, if you like. And here you can see all the inner workings. This is all based on coils, potential energy and things, and machinery. Now, little cogs and things. Okay, this is, I mean, look at the precision of these cogs. You would need very precise tools. You would need, very precise machinery to be able to create these, to be able to create the runnings of them. It's like the clocks, like the Swiss clocks that we're told about, with all these, hundreds of little cogs, tiny, tiny cogs in them. And I just made in the 1500s. That's just when they were made. This is a clockwork crayfish automaton made in Augsburg in 1589. So this is a mechanical crayfish. Okay, clearly, it walks. The claws probably do something. Here's a wooden one, Pinocchio riding a bike. Okay, much more simpler version. We've probably seen things like this, but it's the older ones, right? The metal ones that are the very interesting ones. This, of course, this is the Antikythera mechanism. You've probably all heard of this. This is like a solar device, a clock, but again, full of all these cogs and mechanical parts, which we have no explanation at all in the mainstream narrative for. How did they make all these? Put them all together? And this, they're telling us it's a one-off. This was found in a boat wreck, but it's basically it's like a clock, but it also navigates the sky, the stars, all this kind of stuff, has a lot of information. And they're saying from 150 to 100 BC. Okay, so these are like, U parts, right? Out of place artifacts. This is another automaton. Okay, she's sitting there writing a book. There's heaps of these. Here's a rooster. Okay, so what's the explanation for all of these? All of these automatons that are still in old buildings and working. And there is even a book, I'm going to have to find this, the book about automata by Hero of Alexandria, the 1589 edition. So I think I'm going to be having a look for that. Automatons, robots of Tartaria, if you want. That's basically what they were, and they're still working. Some of these are still working, the ones that they haven't taken out. So this is St. Peter's Church in Leuven. As you can see, one of these amazing cathedrals, like the same stuff everywhere, the columns. We've got the onion roofs here, the onion dome shape, statues everywhere, all the columns, the vaulted ceilings, oversized doors, the same kind of stuff, right, that we see everywhere. And what this looks like is a monstrance. Monstrances are these sort of, smaller versions of the cathedrals, right? Like smaller versions of the machine. Some of them are handheld, but some of them also you see inside the cathedrals, like this one, which is fairly tall. So they're saying this is basically a model of how the cathedral should have looked with its two towers, but I would say this is actually a component of a machine or even a small machine contained in itself, right? Of course, we've got the clockwork here. Here we have the jack bringing the bell, and this is what we get inside. Vaulted ceilings. Why are these called vaulted ceilings, do you think? Is that because volts run across them, electricity? Okay, we have all these arched windows, arc windows. Electricity flows in arcs. We have it down here, the same thing, right? All the arcs. And oversized, right? You can see how big this place is compared to this dude here. And always made of stone. All right, stone with lots of silica in it. Right, silica, like crystals. Here's wood carving. Now this obviously, added after the building was built. So what do you think? Built in the 1400s? by the same architects at the same time with a population in the town of 2,300. I mean, you wouldn't even have a government big enough to fill this building. Not, and what's all this stuff if it's a town hall? The narrative never makes sense, right? This is the buildings today. This is a strange little weird statue, some devil reading a book and pouring water on his head. But over here, and you can see, look at the front down here, it's the same, it's like fractal, isn't it? That's like a fractal small version of the whole chapel. And this, like, these are all statues. I think I have a picture here we can zoom in on. Yep, here we go. These are all statues. This is the town hall. Look at this. Okay, so again, guys, 2,300 people living in the town in the 1400s, and this is what they whack up, right? Every, space on the exterior of this facade is covered. Now it looks like they might be using multiple materials here, right? This looks more sandstony. This, all these dudes are sort of whiter, aren't they? Or has it been refacaded? I don't know. What are these Christmas tree things with all these balls coming off them? Like, what is going on here? The statues, I mean, what do you think? I mean, we have had suggestions like, are these like teleportation devices? Maybe something happened and everyone was in the midst of teleporting and they got frozen and turned to stone. I'm not sure, but look at these as well, right? We have these statues again here and here, standing under these bits, right? These knobbly spires, okay, which we see all over these buildings. And this roof, we can't actually see it now, it's covered in them. So what is all this stuff? We have these same motifs, right? These nature, they look like leaves. They're at the top of all the columns and they're everywhere. The same symbols, right? The same logos all across the realm. Of course, this is inside vaulted ceilings again, right? All these arcs and arches down at the front. There would have been an organ here originally, I'm thinking. I've got the lights streaming in under arcs again. I mean, these places are crazy right now. This is the town hall. Okay, I'm not sure the date, but it looks like what, 1700s, 1800s maybe. But where are the statues? Okay, this is the same, right? We've got the three here, three here. We've got the cathedral across the road. That looks like it's got some shops at the front of it, but that's the cathedral, right? We go back here. See, this is the town hall with the three and the three, and we've got these statues, right, between all the windows. And across here, big flying buttresses of the cathedral. So here, back in the past, you have the town hall, which, by the way, looks to be higher off the ground. See here, we've got like a block and then a half block, and it's not quite even, but like that's what, half of one of these levels, I guess. And then back in the past, this bit at the bottom looks at least the size of one of the levels. So we've got a ground difference here. And this cathedral, yeah, it's got all these shops and things in the front of it. Very interesting. But again, like, look between the windows. Where are the statues? Like the actual little holes for the statues are there. I can see that, but there's no statues in them. So what's going on? Right, but these at the top here, so these are these knobbly bits, these knobbly spires that we saw before in the statues. So what do you think is going on here? See, they're all full. And here are the knobbly bits. So let me know your thoughts on this. Where did all these statues come from? Is this just part of changing the narrative? Were they putting them up there to, put themselves on pedestals and create their little story of kings and queens and bloodlines? Or is there something weirder going on? Are these some kind of transportation, teleportation devices and something happened and all these people, when they came through, got frozen, turned into stone? Because they're not here in this picture. Okay, and this, again, this cathedral, It's got shops and houses built into it. So what are these really, right? They're not places for worship, worshiping a god outside of you. They're energy centers, energy machines. Okay, here's another picture. And this is it today. You could see, the old one, all the shops were pushed in around the edges here. And if we go in, not the best picture, sorry, but the statues are there. This is another shot inside St. Peter's with another monstrance looking device. Here's that monstrance again. And as you can see, it's literally just a small replica, right? A fractal version of a cathedral. We've got these same spires with the knobbly bits, right? And they just sort of say, oh, these are just replicas of the cathedral. They built this before they built the actual cathedral. But you can see this is not the same building here as the cathedral, the St. Peter's. So are these their own energy devices, their own machines? I think that when we look at this, we're looking at technology. It's just technology that we don't necessarily understand, but we're getting there. All these arcs and arches, vaulted ceilings, windows, domes, it's always the same components making up these buildings. Here's some of the artwork, and they're always covered, aren't they, on the outside? Here's, this, we see this a lot, right? Which I guess is a bit like the clover shape. And we see we see it enclosed as well, a lot like the Triskelion. And we have all this interesting, very geometrically formed shapes all over the place. And they just repeat and repeat and repeat across the different buildings. This is a picture, from back in the day. Interesting floor we've got here, right? But you'll see here is one of the monstrances. We've got all these figures here, massive chandelier, look at that. And all the domes and vaulted ceilings. And of course, hugely, hugely oversized building. So there you go. The mystery of the missing statues, right? Where do you think they all came from? What's going on here? Did they disappear? Were they added later? Let me know in the comments. Why would they build this as a town hall? How did they build it in the 1400s? Do you think they found it, or do you think they built it for a population of 2,300 people? Okay, here it is in the glory day. And of course, here you can see even these stairs look smaller than they did in that other picture. It looks like it's a bit mud flood affected as well. So this is the Leuven Town Hall. Hope you enjoyed that little romp through the past, checking out the buildings in Belgium. Please give me a like, subscribe if you haven't, share this video around, all that good stuff, and leave me a comment. And thanks for spending some time with me, and I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.
Remember, in the end, nobody wins unless everybody wins. Come on!